I've been tracking Sasquatches for 25 years.
These animals, in fact, are real.
I've seen them. They're here.
Is it possible that a prehistoric shark is still roaming our oceans today?
Holy fuck.
There are plenty of shows out in the world that are used as the butt end of a lot of jokes. Honey Boo Boo, Jersey Shore, Beast Games, and so on. These are shows known for being outrageous, or maybe offensive to some, or otherwise just not good programming. But you know what these shows did? Ethical or not, they showed you exactly what you signed up for if you watched them. The same cannot be said for every show under the sun. In a world where no, those aren't cut corners, it's sleek design is a slogan for most companies nowadays, we are often promised great things, only to find out that what's actually being sold is nothing more than a pile of screws and tape. Nice for some, not for all. Hi, I'm Danny, your chaser neither, and when I first started going to college, I majored in the field of media studies for a single semester, which practically makes me an expert on all things TV, movie, and radio. And if that semester taught me one thing, it's that there is a lot of really good and really bad stuff allowed on the air. Pretty much as long as the broadcasting company knows what you're offering them is going to give them consistent views or clicks or impressions, you're definitely well on your way to earning a primetime spot on the old idiot box, even if what you're marketing is a bunch of nonsense. None of this should be too surprising though. Television has been controversial ever since it was invented, with people worried that society would end up with too many people watching screens, and literacy rates would drop, and maybe the impact it would have on children is bad, and The history of television also wouldn't be complete without talking about the amount of lies people use it to spread. Even back in the 1950s, we had people making hoaxes about spaghetti being harvested from trees just to mess with British people who weren't familiar with spaghetti. Although this could be seen as a kind of harmless fun, some of what we're going to be talking about is genuinely just misleading for the sake of profit. When I think of broadcasts specifically designed to lie to people, there are millions of examples that I could think of. I mean, you and I can just name any news outlet on the face of the planet and we're already there. But we're going to be taking a look at some outside of the news world today, talking about what they are, should they or shouldn't they exist, the ethics of all of that, and all of that wonderful stuff. To start, I know a classic that pretty much everybody has at least heard of at some point: Finding Bigfoot. So without any further ado, I say we go ahead and dive right into the world of hunting Sasquatch. Uh-oh. I think there's a Sasquatch about to rip me in half. Howdy, Squatch heads. Yeah, he's still not real. It was just me. Anyway, murder aside, I'm dropping by to ask that if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, that you drop a like below and make sure to subscribe to stay updated with future content. Your support gives me the energy I need to keep it up. Not like that, perverts. Any whoosies, thank you. Back to your regularly scheduled content. For anyone who may not be in the know, Finding Bigfoot was a show that started airing in 2011, carrying on for almost exactly 7 years before coming to an end. Not because they found Bigfoot, as you might hope, but because of failing ratings, inconclusive evidence, and all the typical failing TV jargon. As the title suggests, Finding Bigfoot follows people trekking around in the woods in various places looking for Sasquatch. The purpose of the show, mind you, was not to question whether or not Bigfoot exists, but to prove that he does exist. And the brave people overseeing these investigations are the BFRO, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. Come on, we all know about the BFRO. The BFRO, as far as I knew before making this video, was something that they created literally just for the show, but after doing a little bit of my own research, no. The BFRO not only exists, but it has existed since 1995, 16 years before Finding Bigfoot made it to the air. And not only do they exist, you can still find their website here, and it still gets updates in 2025. Wild. And I just have to quickly go over this one part of the page that I absolutely love that talks about facts surrounding the Sasquatch. It is undisputed fact that for over 400 years, large human-like hairy animals have been sighted in the woods, often by people of unimpeachable character. Because as we know, lying is constitutionally prohibited. But maybe I'm being unfair. I mean, there's literally an entire TV show surrounding hunting for a cryptid that many people have claimed to have an encounter with. I mean, they even have a skeptic as part of their team on the show. They've got to be on to something, right? Let's start with the very first episode that they ever aired. Season 1, Episode 1. The very first hunt for the hairy hunk took place in rural Georgia, Chattahoochee National Forest specifically. According to Matt Moneymaker, the founder of the BFRO, and yes, that's his real name, This is a very likely place for a Bigfoot habitat. Their investigation this time is spurred on by police dashcam footage that appears to show some kind of silhouette lumbering across the road at night. And Matt is quick to point out that the officers, though baffled by what they saw, don't conduct any kind of investigation because the Sasquatch didn't commit any crimes.
The police didn't really do anything about it afterwards. There was no laws apparently broken, so there was no need to do any kind of a police investigation.
Flawless programming. Cliff Barackman and James Fay, aka Bobo, are two other members of the BFRO, while Renee Holland serves as the team's skeptic. These three are convinced that the video is pretty much proof of Sasquatch, while Renee isn't so sure. To ensure they get the full story, they meet one of the people that was actually at the scene, Mary Scott. Mary basically tells everybody that she and the other person in the car were driving down a specific stretch of road when they saw this big, hairy thing run across the road, to which they turned around, turned on their lights, hopped out, and began to investigate.
We're, of course, going too fast to stop immediately, so we hit the brakes, spun around, immediately came back. The officer puts on the blue lights, we jump out of the car. The officer had a big gun drawn and he's identifying himself.
Ignoring that this 100% goes against what Matt was saying just literally 5 seconds ago, Mary proceeds to confirm that what she saw was not the usual suspects. It wasn't a deer and it wasn't a black bear. It was something that was big, it was erect, and it was hairy. That's how she describes it. I'm not just f***ing around.
Very furry. It was so big, so erect.
So it seems pretty definitive. This lady saw something big and hairy lumbering across the road, and she doesn't even bring up the possibility that it could have been a person in a costume. And that can only mean one thing. Big feet. Keep in mind, all of this has happened within the first 6 minutes of a 40-plus minute episode. And after that, they get to one of the more interesting aspects of the show, experiments in the field. They attempt to recreate the events as close as possible to the dashcam footage, having Bobo run across the street to see if they can better understand what's going on in the video, all while ensuring Bobo doesn't get turned into bye-bye. After running their experiment once, most of them, save for Renee, come away convinced that it had to be a Sasquatch. After that, they move into what might be the most infamous part of the show. The team goes out into the woods with cameras and makes a bunch of noise. Okay, so it's here that I have to start asking some questions already. On the BFRO website, it claims that the Sasquatch evolved alongside humans and has become very good at hiding from them. So how is going into the middle of the woods and screaming going to draw them closer to you? I feel like if anything, it would probably do something more like this. Second, after they do all of the screaming, they hear 2 knocks on a tree nearby. Matt claims to be the person to have discovered that a Sasquatch will knock on a tree in response to calls. How does he know that if he's never studied a Sasquatch up close and for real? I know questioning the show this early is kind of defeating the point. We're all just trying to have some fun here, but anyway. After they do all of their in-field investigations, they go and hold a kind of mini town hall meeting with some people that have claimed to have had encounters with Bigfoot outside of that dashcam video. Oh boy. The witness stories are pretty much what you'd expect. Stories at night, big hairy animal guy, some photographs of foot impressions, the works. All coupled together with the show's recreations, including a CGI Sasquatch. Of all of the stories, they go with 3 in nearby areas, starting with Janet's story. Her story is similar to the police dashcam. Night drive, big thing in the road that isn't a bear. Taking some estimates, because human memory and perception is flawless, they estimate the thing had to be over 9 feet tall. The team splits up after this to tackle the 2 other stories they plan to investigate, Darla's and John's stories. Darla is the one who brought photographs to the witness gathering, and John's story is that he was walking through the woods and he saw it moving through the trees. Pretty run-of-the-mill Bigfoot stuff. To Mr. Moneymaker's credit, he does actually start to call John's story into question a little bit. Some of the details that John starts providing don't match up with the typical features of a Sasquatch that you would find. So clearly, this story is a bunch of nonsense.
His description of the face wasn't entirely consistent with what I've heard before. There's some things about this story that still make no sense at all and just completely flies in the face of what I know reality to be.
The irony isn't lost on them at all. As for Darla's story, they actually end up talking to Darla's husband, who was the one that took the photographs originally. And after doing a bit of searching around where the original photographs were taken, they find a pretty serious foot impression. Hey, that's pretty convincing stuff. I mean, even Renee the skeptic doesn't know what to say.
I'm a little dumbfounded to actually find a track. If people know we're out here looking for Bigfoot and run around barefoot and leaving some tracks for us to find, I don't know really what to say.
And all of this definitive proof of Sasquatch leads them to the single logical conclusion: this is where they are going to start finding Bigfoot. That's why they call it that. The episode culminates with the people calling in the Georgia chapter of the BFRO to help them look through the woods with car-mounted thermal cams. Driving through the woods, they come up empty until one of the cars claims to have a hit.
Hey guys, it's Delta Car. I see something. I definitely have a hit. Come over here and check this out. Oh my god.
Hold on, I'll be right there.
Someone hopping out with a handheld therm.
They follow it into the woods, only to come up empty-handed, and the episode ends. No, I'm not kidding. They pretty much just say, all right, well, I guess we can appreciate the Sasquatch in northern Georgia better now, and then it ends. I don't know if clickbait is the right way to categorize what's happening here, but there is definitely some dishonesty at play here. The supposed hit with the thermal cam doesn't offer any kind of scale, it's shown for such a little amount of time, and any view of it after that is super small and far away. And that's about the best way I can summarize how I felt after sitting and watching a full episode of Finding Bigfoot. It's a show starting with its conclusion. We can't see what people get up to off camera, of course. We know nothing about the people they talk to, so on. I won't say I wasn't entertained, but I definitely don't hold any more belief in Bigfoot. And from what I've heard, that's pretty much how the entire show went, but I didn't stop here. I dug just a little bit deeper. I jumped all the way to season 6 to see just exactly how far the show went. And the answer... And the answer may not surprise you. Season 6, Episode 6 follows the crew into Alabama. They meet with some people that say that they've encountered Bigfoot, they go into the woods and they scream and they bang on a bunch of wood all the time to try and get the Bigfoot closer, and then they come up with nothing. Pretty much identical to everything we had just seen in episode 1. Overall, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad show. I just don't think that it's very good. Obviously, it's a low-budget show designed to get views, and it just didn't have staying power in the long term, and that's ultimately what killed it. I mean, it's Chekhov's Bigfoot. You promise catching a Bigfoot in the first act and you haven't caught it by the second. Sorry, your show is shit. One other anecdote that I wanted to share, but I couldn't find a way to incorporate it into this video, is that when I was a kid, I would catch glimpses of the show on TV occasionally, and the screen that they used to transition from the show to commercials and then from commercials back to the show scared me so bad that it gave me a nightmare that I still remember in vivid detail to this day. Thanks, BFRO. But if you think Finding Bigfoot is the only show to do something like this, boy do I have news for you. And that news is called Megalodon: The Monster Shark Lives, and the sequel that followed soon after. While not a TV show, Megalodon: The Monster Shark Lives is a film that aired on TV in 2013 during Discovery Channel's long-running Shark Week series, and it presented itself as a documentary surrounding people's first-hand experience with the once-believed to be extinct Megalodon. And it was all a big, fat lie. Some people might claim that the movie was made to be a kind of mockumentary that shouldn't have been taken seriously, but it seems like Discovery Channel was really presenting this as 100% truthful and serious, which it would come out later that it definitely wasn't. The people the documentary claimed to be experts were nothing more than paid actors, and the backlash actually caused Discovery Channel to have to add disclaimers to the beginning and end of the film to indicate that it was in fact fictional. There are definitely some ethical concerns to be raised when talking about the presenting of a fake documentary while claiming that the contents within are all legitimate. I mean, this definitely isn't the only time that this has happened, and I'm sure there are many more to come in the future. Regardless, Monster Shark Lives was an incredibly successful documentary. It tallied a total of 4.8 million watchers, if for no other reason than for people to come and criticize it once they realized that it was just a bunch of nonsense. And a lot of people also went on to say that this marked the end of the Discovery Channel being anything good. And, yeah, kinda. But what's better than making a single fake documentary intentionally misleading people? That's right, making a second fake documentary intentionally misleading people. And that is exactly what we would get with Megalodon: The New Evidence. Potentially as a way to save face, the new evidence starts off with disclaimers that some of what we'll be seeing has been dramatized. To catch everyone up, Monster Shark Lives talked about a fishing boat in South Africa being capsized and it being theorized that a megalodon was responsible, comparing it to other events happening across the world. And apparently, after Monster Shark came out, the scientific community was mixed on whether or not the megalodon still existed, but the public weighed heavily in favor of the shark being alive. I can definitely say from my own research that this doesn't appear to be the case, but that's whatever. Pop off, monarchs. This is Colin Drake, the marine biologist leading the charge in proving the existence of the modern-day megalodon. But if you do even a bit of research about Mr. Drake, you will quickly find out that his real name is Darren Meyer, an actor who loves to play in, among other things, shark and ocean-related movies. But he's real here, trust me, bro. According to Colin, after the release of Monster Shark, the South African government claimed that he was creating an unnecessary shark fear, and so they pulled the plug on his entire operation. That means that he now has to work entirely independently. Something I have to give the new evidence credit for, though, is that they start off talking about some really interesting things. They bring up the concept of Lazarus's taxon, and they even take a moment to debunk a classic video that people claim to show proof of Megalodon. And not only that, they even take a second to joke about some very obviously photoshopped images that probably would have me convinced if I were still a small child. However, the first piece of this alleged new evidence that we get is somehow worse than everything we've seen so far. Because here it is.
Hey, got a pod of, I'm counting about 6 whales that I've seen so far, heading north. The Caribbean's great this time of year. Spin on around and we'll go share. Whoa!
This video is brought to us by a sailor by the name of Jake Skelton. He and a friend were sailing across the Atlantic when he managed to capture a pod of whales. And they really want to establish Colin as a man who knows what he's talking about. Not only did he manage to identify these whales as sperm whales, he also went over all of the possibilities and came to the logical conclusion. It must be the Meg. I know, you don't believe it yet, but don't you worry, all you critics out there. If you thought this was all Colin was bringing to the table, then you better hold on to your ass, because he's got more where that came from, such as this anecdotal evidence from 1918 where a group of fishermen claimed to see a large shark anywhere from 115 to 300 feet long. Pretty damning stuff. Back from commercials, and we get a satellite photo that allegedly shows us, according to Colin, a megalodon. Now, if we compare this image to another image of school buses that don't have any kind of measurement or scale involved with them, we can see that the shark is definitely bigger than the buses. Yeah, guys, so I hate to admit it, but it was going to come out sooner or later. I mean, it's true that I just am that much taller than Shaquille O'Neal. He's just, to compare to me, he's a tiny wee human. He doesn't even know the definition of basketball. They do also bring on a satellite image expert that's going to try and counter Colin's claim that it's a shark by having her claim that it's a flotsam. A cargo container, or a shipwreck, or anything like that. She doesn't claim that the image is fake, or doctored in any way, or it could be any other kind of shark. Nothing sensible like that. And if you thought the video evidence Colin had with the whales earlier was bad, they don't even try with this lady. I mean, they so quickly have her go from it's a shipwreck to it's a whale shark to it's refraction, but I don't really know what it is, but it's not important to me, but I won't say it isn't a megalodon.
But while the object definitely appears large on the scale that Mr. Drake suggests, my first reaction is to consider whether it's some type of flotsam, though I would surmise a whale or a whale shark first. Keep in mind, I have no vested interest one way or another whether Megalodon is out there. Anything underwater is subject to light refraction.
We get a bit of discussion about the age Megalodon may have lived to, comparing it to large whales that live to be over 100 and the like, before moving to what Colin claims is even harder evidence of the Megalodon living today. A Megalodon tooth. The expert they bring on is quick to let us know that the tooth matches other Megalodon teeth almost exactly, but unlike many of the other teeth out there, this one has been dated to be the age of something that could still be alive. Do we get any solid proof of this test or that this tooth is actually real? So, the expert says the logical conclusion is that it belongs to a Megalodon. Next, they then bring on a guy who works for the South African government, allegedly, and he might be the worst part of this entire thing as a whole. Let me set the scene for you. After Collins' reports in The Monster Shark Lives, the South African government put together a team of independent researchers to go out, and ultimately they concluded that there was no shark that sunk any boat. It was, in fact, a killer whale. We're then shown this definitely very real 100% trust me bro picture, and just watch this man's delivery of this.
Yes, in fact, it was their determination that the incident was perpetrated not by a shark, but by a lone orca.
Do you agree? This looks like a humpback whale being attacked?
It would appear so, yes. I think Mr. Drake would rather us believe that there's a 70-foot dinosaur shark down there than a lone orca with a strange fin.
What? Also, let me just take a moment to point out the constant smug looks they have Colin do the entire time. It's just about any time anybody says anything that doubts his claims, he just hits him with the, oh yeah, okay, Buster. Finally, Colin moves on to his last piece of evidence, the one that he knows will undoubtedly make all the doubters no longer doubt what he knows is out there. And that evidence is, there are multiple megalodons. No, I'm not kidding. He takes us through this whole thing about how in the original documentary he had tagged a big shark, and earlier he showed us that satellite image of a megalodon near Brazil. But a few days after that picture was taken, the tag pinged an area in the Indian Ocean, followed by a totally unedited video shot by some Australians.
Keep an eye out. It's a big one, eh? 15 foot and easy. Gorgeous, mate. Coming right at you. What is that? Say on the hill, that's huge.
And that, I shit you not, is how it ends. They talk to Colin a little bit more, but nothing else important is established, and then they roll credits. Megalodon not only still exists, but is reproducing in the wild. Hooray. Look, is it weird of me to be nitpicking a very cheaply made fake documentary? Maybe, but I have genuine problems with The Monster Shark Lives and the new evidence as pieces of media as a whole, especially on the Discovery Channel. Media is incredibly powerful. You can learn a lot just by reading something or watching stuff or just having a conversation with another person. And people form really strong opinions about the things that they hear, whether or not what they heard is fake or not. And so the way that the new evidence and probably Monster Shark Lives portrays people, it just really irks me. There's already so much doubt placed in science and the government nowadays that this definitely doesn't help anything. I'm not saying science is always right and the government is always to be trusted, definitely not, but this movie portrays them as idiots. Everything from the body language to the level of confidence when speaking, comparing the people they interview compared to Colin or any of his own guests, it's night and day. Not to mention, the only people they have in the studio are the people who support Colin's view, while the countering views are all radioed in. Part of me wishes I didn't have to comment about this. Part of me hopes people can tell the difference between real and clearly fake information. But I know there are people out there that believed this. There has to be at least one. And if that's you, here, just look at this thing really quick. And that is Megalodon: The New Evidence, a documentary serving as a sequel to what many said marked the beginning of the end of the Discovery Channel being a good channel. But you know what? I don't want this video to be all just doom and gloom. I don't generally enjoy reality cryptid shows, and I'm not into the whole ghost hunting stuff or anything like that. But there is one exception that I can think of. In 2007, Sci-Fi began airing a show by the name of Destination Truth. It was a show that followed around the explorer Josh Gates in order to determine the truth of certain claims relating to supernatural or unbelievable happenings. The show was relatively successful, managing 5 seasons and hitting a maximum viewer count of over 2 million people during the initial release of Season 3. One of the contributing factors to the show's success was the blend of skepticism as well as adventure and exploration that it offered. You didn't tune in because Josh was going to try and prove that something existed. You tuned in because Josh, much like the audience, wants to find out the truth. At the destination. Josh and his crew also aren't messing around. Each episode usually contains 2 investigations, typically in different locations. In a single episode, you'll be looking around Indonesia for a giant ape monster, and then in the very next moment, you'll be searching for dinosaurs in the jungle. And speaking of dinosaurs, before making this video, it had been a long while since I had seen a single episode of Destination Truth. So after rewatching the pilot, which sees Josh as he tries to find proof of an iguanodon of all things, I decided decided to scroll through the selection to see if there was anything that would catch my eye immediately. And that brings us to Season 3, Episode 8, Werewolf and the Eureka Monster. I went back into Destination Truth with pretty low expectations, expecting some low-budget stuff of shaky handheld cameras and people having their friends stand way off in the distance and move really weird. But off the bat, especially with this episode, I'm really impressed, and hopefully you'll soon see why. But first, we have to get to Romania. The journey to find evidence of a werewolf takes the crew to the site of everyone's favorite hotel, Transylvania. They meet with an anthropologist that pretty much tells them to take a train to the middle of nowhere, which sounds safe enough. It is here that I do already have to knock the show a little bit. Given that it came out a good chunk of time ago, there is going to be some dated comedy here and there, with Josh making comments about women that are a little
This thing is packed. Which one is full of Romanian supermodels?
And this definitely isn't the only time he said something like this. It isn't the most awful thing I've ever seen or heard, but it definitely makes me grit my teeth and pull on my collar to let some steam out. But hey, the next bit of the episode is actually a lot of fun. Everyone gets to enjoy some cultural dishes and enjoy some music at the place they plan to stay. Definitely one of the highlights of the show is the amount of times that they actually show off other countries and cultures like this. Not to judge, but to entertain and inform the audience. Something else the show does really well comes not long after all of the fun and festivities. See, it's one thing to wander into the middle of the woods and start screaming and banging on wood to make a bunch of noise and all that. Destination Truth makes me actually concerned for these people's well-being sometimes. One part of the werewolf hunt leads them to a cave that, not only looking like the perfect spot for a werewolf to hide out and also reminding me of all of those cave diving videos, also contains human bones. Even if you want to make the claim that the human bones were planted there or they weren't actually human bones, they also find scratch marks carved deep into the stone of the cave, implying that some claw-bearing animal had been there recently. And if you think that that part's also fake, well, that's no fun. The tail end of the werewolf section sees some familiar elements to other cryptid shows, going into the woods, night vision cameras, all that stuff. The most notable thing to happen here is some wolves howling and a pair of eyes glowing in the trees, but otherwise no definitive proof of a werewolf. Samples they took while they were out come back as evidence of nothing more than the local wolf population, and otherwise the mystery is left up to the viewers. Even if they didn't find proof that the werewolf hangs around there, could it still be out there? Naturally, after hunting for a werewolf in Europe, the crew turns their eyes to South America to begin the hunt for what eyewitnesses have described as a dinosaur capable of extreme speeds. Imagine the velociraptors from Jurassic Park if they lived in Chile instead. This is the Eureka Monster. Now, I actually took some time to do more research on my own before I continued this episode. I'm already pretty familiar with werewolves and vampires and all that classic horror stuff, but I hadn't heard much about the Eureka Monster. And what I found was actually really interesting. From what I gathered, this is the only Raptorian cryptid. It's believed to be some kind of descendant of ancient dromaeosaurs, like Velociraptor or Deinonychus. A lot of dromaeosaurs were also covered in feathers, but I couldn't find anything confirming or denying if that's what this thing is. A lot of people just say that it's kind of like a kangaroo dog face hybrid thing, so do with that what you will. I could talk about dinosaurs all day, just FYI. I love these guys, especially these guys. And I may or may not have a video that's dinosaur themed that I'm currently working on, so, you know, stick around for that one. Back to the episode, the first person they talk to recounts the time he allegedly encountered the creature while driving with his daughter. And in his mind, there is no doubt. He saw a dinosaur. But it's the second clip they show of interviewing locals that I would like to talk about more. In a lot of these cryptid stories that people tell, it always seems like there's somebody that's had the encounter of driving through the street, the creature stopped in the road, turned its head, and then took off. I definitely won't say that these things didn't happen, but I think these monsters need to get a bit more creative with how they're scaring people. And when it comes to scaring people, nobody seems to do it better than this pilot. Josh actually gets really suspicious of this guy, and it is really goddamn funny.
When did the plane last fly? What are you looking for? Oh, your glasses. Yeah, you got your glasses now. How long have you been flying for?
In this dinosaur of an airplane with Captain Magoo behind the controls.
Nope.
The team opts instead to drive ATVs, and honestly, even if they don't find anything, this looks hella fun. Their primary goal is to find water sources that an animal could drink from, which, funnily enough, is really difficult to find in the middle of a desert. But just then, Josh makes an incredible discovery. Feet. From there, they set up a base camp and they make a mold of the footprint that they found, and then they begin their night hunt with the night vision. This is another example of some absolutely crazy shit that no one should be doing. Wandering around in the middle of the desert at night, even without dinosaurs, is not a good idea. And you can kinda tell how not safe it is by the fact that these people are having trouble even just walking around. I mean, Josh takes a tumble just mere moments after he finds a disembodied animal paw. Not to mention, they do have some kind of encounter with some sort of creature. Do they see what it is? No, but that's still terrifying. The rest of this section goes pretty much like the werewolf did. They go back to LA and they talk to experts about their finds and all that stuff and whatnot. But Josh and co. actually made a really fascinating discovery with this. They found actual dinosaur footprints, not of Velociraptor or anything like that, but ironically, Iguanodon. While I'm sure Destination Truth gets a bit formulaic after a few episodes, I'm still a fan. There isn't a definitive conclusion reached, which allows for skepticism, but also just enough room for discussion on both sides. And I think that's how you can get a show like this to actually work. It's one thing to straight up say this thing exists and try to find it for years only to turn up nothing. That's exactly what happened to finding Bigfoot. It's another thing to say this thing could exist and then try to find evidence either way for it. That's what Destination Truth does. And after all of that, we have reached the conclusion for our... And after all of that, we have reached the end of our elusive hunt for nothing. We have looked at 3 pieces of media involving people trying to hunt for evidence of or try to convince people of the existence of certain mythical creatures. And after having gone through all of this, I'm still really not convinced by any of it. Do I think cryptids exist? No. Could I be wrong? Yeah, sure, why not? If you out there think that you have a fun cryptid story that you'd like to tell, make sure to leave it down in the comments. If I get enough people doing it, I might actually just gather a few of them and do kind of a research and story time kind of thing. Overall, some of these shows can be just general, harmless fun if you're into that sort of thing. But if you are going to watch them, just make sure you're doing your research on who's making it, what's going on, all that stuff before you fall down the pipeline of being a conspiracy theorist. But otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all the wonderful stuff you can do with the pretty buttons down below. And as always, I'm Danny Chase, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Bye now.